Okay, welcome. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Finance and Projects Committee meeting for today, the 19th of March. Welcome to those on live stream. Councillor Arnold, who's also joining us on live stream, welcome.
Thank you.
So we do have a quorum. So we do have 3 apologies. So Councillor Ludlow, Councillor Soper and Councillor Pottinger. Can I have someone? Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Tris. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, are there any declarations of interest that need to be? Can't be Trish.
I can't be
Trish, don't put your hand up again.
I realise.
Nobby, would you
Yep.
second? Thank you.
Sorry.
That's right. Okay, so first item is the minutes of the Finance and Projects meeting on the 20th of February. So can I have someone move that we accept them? Thanks, Barry. And a seconder?
I can't do it. I wasn't here.
No. Tom, do you want to? Alan, thank you. Okay, are there any questions relating to those minutes? Okay, there being none, we'll move. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, first item is the Q2 performance. We're going to split this into 2 pieces. We'll do the council piece first, which Rhiannon will take us through, and then Shami thankfully has stayed on and we'll talk to any questions that are relating to the Great South aspect of the report. So Jamie, you're here too, thank you.
Kia ora, councillors. So I'll just speak briefly to the Q2 performance report. You'll see that the overall level of service KPIs are slightly off from Q1. This is a normal kind of trend line that we see as we move through the year. As things become more certain, we're still tracking ahead of where we were in the previous financial year. You'll see that there are 13 measures and areas where we're currently keeping an eye, and a further 10 where we know that we've already failed to achieve those for the year. Those are the areas where set by regulatory standards 100% performance is required, and therefore missing one occasion for a customer means that the KPI is missed for the year. There are some of the satisfaction KPIs that are unlikely to be met this financial year. Those trends are up slightly on last financial year, but we are talking only marginal increases. So that's particularly in the area of democratic process and He Wakatuia, for example. Other areas are continuing to see that uptick that we've seen since the end of the COVID period, where satisfaction has started to increase again. I think that I will finally just draw attention to the strong performance in our core activities, particularly in the Three Waters area. You'll see there's particularly an increase from Q1 in terms of the stormwater area. That's relating really to that heavy rainfall event that we had in the first quarter, where there are a lot of requests for service inevitably coming through from the community, and they are defined in terms of the performance indicators as complaints. So well on track there. We are continuing to see a little bit of a softening in the solid waste performance, and the team are continuing to monitor what that might be related to, and how we can respond in terms of activities to change people's behaviour in the area of recycling. But it is important to note it's still a considerable improvement on the last financial year. It's just a bit of a softening in that trend, so the teams are watching that. And I will pass to Jamie to speak to the financial performance.
Thanks for that. So the end of December, the net operating deficit is $11.5 million. Now, there is a bit of a variance between this and the forecast because we have changed accounting practices, and I will refer to Patricia to try and explain that to you guys in English.
So what we've done partway through the year, which I appreciate was not ideal, is that we've moved to an invoice processed practice for the management reporting of performance. This will be so when the invoices are processed, not when the work is done, is how the performance reports will be reflected. When we get to year end, anything that was done, where work was done in this financial year, will be recognised in June. So if you were to split the year into its 12 months, we effectively back end and put 2 months in June then things. So we have got some variances coming through. It will only happen this year because we will fix that forecasting going forward. It has some real efficiencies for the finance team, and we're hoping that will actually allow the performance reports to be able to get out more quickly to yourselves, and more importantly, the financial performance gets out to managers much more quickly so they can make changes.
Okay, are there any questions on that particular piece of, because it does throw up a pretty big variance.
It does throw up a pretty big variance.
Tom, and just in relation to that particular question.
Yep.
Sorry, on the financial
Yes.
service? Yep. No, I'll come back later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the accruals, shifting from accruals to invoice process system. So just want to be clear what happens at the end of the year. Because in the past we've had sort of contingent liabilities that carries over the end of the fiscal year. So that means if you start some work and you don't finish it, it's part of it's still recorded in the previous year.
Indeed, we will be accruing for part projects. They will be accrued for any work that was done in June.
Yep.
Will be shown in the June result when we get to that.
So that'll happen every year.
That will happen every year.
Yeah. Okay.
We just started taking a more management approach to it rather than a strict accounting technical approach.
Sure. Okay. And Jamie mentioned something about our year-to-date result, and the report gives it in with depreciation and without depreciation. And I don't know why we do that. We should be declaring one or the other, but not both, because the difference between with depreciation and without is 21.5 million. So our results are either incorporating depreciation or they're not.
So the overall result will include depreciation.
Yes,
it will.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason we state it also without depreciation is so it's more from a cash flow view of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
That makes sense.
Well, it does, but on the other hand, it doesn't, because if we're including, then we're about 11 million over at the halfway stage of the year.
Depreciation.
No.
Include depreciation.
If it includes depreciation, we're about $11 million or somewhere close to that overspent. So to me, that means only one of two things. It means that we've got our forecasting wrong, or we're genuinely overspending, or alternatively, we haven't forecast the depreciation right.
The reason why we have started separating out the depreciation is because of the revaluations that we've been doing. Yeah. We've never been able to reflect. It's very difficult to accurately reflect a revaluation when you don't know what it is into the budgets. So that's why we have separated out the depreciation. And actually we are, even with and without depreciation, about $1 million is the difference, isn't it, Jamie?
Yeah, the variance.
The variance is only about $1 million different.
On the forecast.
Than on the forecast at December.
But in real terms, if we're putting depreciation in,
it's with depreciation in.
Our bottom line is we're about $11 million overspent at the halfway stage of the year.
But that recovers at the second half of the year, doesn't it?
No, so we are forecasting for a deficit.
Yeah, we're forecasting a deficit,
Yep.
but I think it was about...
At the moment, we're about $1 million worse than where we thought we would be. But we're also, during this month, we are doing a bit of a reforecasting approach as well, because this is identified. As you can see, we've got, I think it's 12 out of the 19 activities are actually underperforming at the moment from a financial perspective. So we'll be diving into those and just making sure they've got their forecasts correct, and then bringing those changes back to you in the Q3 report.
So when you say activities underperforming, that's capital programs that aren't up to...
This is council's activities.
Council activities.
Yeah.
So therefore, when you say underperforming, they're overspending?
Overspending,
Or under-
not generating enough revenue.
Right.
There's a mix of reasons.
Okay.
Are you taking questions on the reforecasting?
Yep.
Okay, so I mean the obvious thing is, I mean I find it really odd, and I've raised this last year as well, that we forecast, let's say for argument's sake, we forecast on a line that we're going to spend $12 million, $1 million a month, say for argument's sake, and we get halfway through the year, instead of spending $6 million, we've actually spent $7 million. So to my way of thinking, doing accounting, you just run to the end of the year and you're $1 million over. But it seems to me that we have this weird ability to go in after each quarter and readjust the forecast. So if we readjust that forecast of 12 million to 13, at the end of the year we say, oh, we've done okay there.
So the forecast is there to give council a heads up of where we're going to be at the end of the year. The phasing is a wee bit out at the moment because of what Patricia explained earlier. This is the first quarter we've actually applied this new phasing. What we did as a default, we said everything was to be 1 month's less invoicing coming in.
Yep, understand that.
And over the next 6 months, we will be reviewing that. So some things won't be 1 month behind, they'll be actually ahead.
Yep.
Others will be the other way around. So we'll be customizing it so it reflects a better position and a more accurate position where we're going to be at the end of June.
But expenditure or OPEX is a comparative against what you forecast at the beginning of the year, isn't it?
Yeah,
When we get to the annual report, it is always against the annual plan.
So we're just forecasting what it would be. Our ability to change that forecast because we're either under or over, especially if we're over.
Well, that's what Jamie's alluding to. They've tasked the managers with having a deep dive into those projects at 11 of the 19 that are behind, challenging them around, well, how do you get back on course? So that's the normal course of business. It's good that they're doing that at this stage
Absolutely.
instead of sort of running along, and thinking, oh, well, here we go in June, and whoopsie, we should have thought about that in February.
Yeah, but our revenue streams are often built around what we perceive as our forecast for the organisation. And if we get that wrong, we should live with it being wrong and make adjustments. We shouldn't change the forecast. If you know you're $1 million over on a line, and at the end of the year you're still likely to be $1 million over, then you've got some work to do. You don't just change the forecast to accommodate the overspend.
No, I don't think that's what's being suggested. We're not suggesting, oh, well, we're just going to reforecast at a higher level because we're $1 million over and now we're all good. What I'm hearing, but tell me if I'm wrong, is that we're actually going to go in and have a bit of a deep dive kick around those projects that are behind and look at how we get them back on track against the original forecast.
Yeah. So the forecast is currently pointing at where we're looking to aim at.
Yeah.
The end of the year, we still need to get towards that annual plan position.
Yeah.
So how we get back to that space is what we're working through this month.
But we're certainly not going to go in and reforecast at a higher level and just say, oh, now we're okay. No.
Okay.
Righto. Thank you. Any further questions, or is there anything else you want to cover off in the report before we come to the...
Sorry.
The finance one, but if you're taking...
No, I'll just finish this time and then come. Yeah.
I just would like to also mention the capital, it does look like it's tracking below at the moment, but we have had a bit of a pickup over the Q3, and we do have some big projects coming to starting off, like the deconstruction of the museum, and some that are also coming to the end, so like the Tuatara enclosure. Also had a lot of road sealing done in the Q3, so we are expecting it to pick up, but again, we'll be looking at that as well in our forecasting process to get that right position to where we'll be at the end of the year.
Yeah, good. Okay. Thank you. Tom.
So this is not a financial question. It goes back to page 50 in board books about democratic process. And I know we've seen these results before, but they're awful, aren't they? You know, in the last, I think we've, in this triennium, I think we've seen these 2 or 3 times, and they're always awful. And if you go forward to, I think it's page 79, and you look at, I think it's 79, you look at individual comments, It's not 79, but it's through there somewhere. Sorry, I forgot the second page. It's all about consultation and whether we listen and the means by which we consult. And I just wonder whether, rather than just kind of pass over it every time we come to this page, as we've done, whether we do need to have a really good hard think as a council about how we do that work and whether there's a better way to do it. Because the results are just, but now I don't know whether every council in the country has got the same result. I mean, I don't know whether that was so or not wouldn't change things, but yeah.
Yeah, it's always underwhelming when you get that feedback, isn't it? Because you look at what we're doing around the long-term plan and the way we're trying to engage the community and the opportunities we're providing for feedback and that sort of thing. And yet,
well, the biggest comment is always that we have already made up our mind before we go to consultation. So that the consultation that's done is tokenism rather than. Now we know that isn't actually true, but I can see how the public would think that. And maybe it means we go to a bit more real-time consultation, if you know what I mean, so you consulting on the go, rather than after we have, because we might have 3 discussions on the subject through different workshops and meetings, and we kind of arrive, having seen all that information, we arrive at a preferred position, and it then goes to consultation, and as I say, the public see that as being, tokenism. So I mean, I don't know what, I'm not suggesting anything from that other than the fact that, we shouldn't just accept every time we're going to look at, 20% satisfaction rates. The implication, 80% dissatisfaction rates.
Yeah.
So just speaking to that point, Deputy Mayor, I think you're absolutely right. It's something that we're always looking at. We undertook a bit of work which we'll bring back to council and have a further workshop on at some point over the next few months around how we address that. I think we're seeing a few different things going on, which you can kind of see in some of the comments for this quarter of the resident survey. As you said, there are a significant group amongst the community who feel that council doesn't listen, so what is the point of taking part in consultation? It may be that previously they have submitted on an issue and the council has chosen to go in a different direction. It's also can be related to when we have a consultation and you hear from the community, but for one reason or another you have additional information, or the people around the table really reach a different conclusion, and that can have an impact in terms of community perception, and it has recently in the last sort of 6 months or so for this council. And that is something that we always try to address in terms of educating people. What is consultation? It's a process for helping you as councillors inform your decision making. Ultimately, it's not a referendum, it's an engagement. The third piece is that we are focused and have focused continually through the long-term plan and all our policy development processes on early engagement. That is as important as the formal consultation piece, and you as councillors know that you're all kind of involved through that process. And the Mayor's innovation, this long-term plan in terms of live streaming workshops was just one part of that. And I think finally the last point that we're seeing that certainly there is discussion around kind of the local government sector is that people's expectations around democracy and what they expect from the democratic process are changing, whether that's linked to technology changes or social changes. It's quite a complex picture. Satisfaction levels for the democratic process element of what council does are declining. That is kind of a trend that is being seen across other areas, while satisfaction with particular services remains higher. So that would indicate a level of which people are, what they're expecting is changing. How we respond to that is challenge. I think the final piece I'll just mention, because it is such a complex issue, is that the media landscape is fragmented. That is a challenge that everybody is dealing with. There is no one source to reach all parties. So we always see, no matter what effort we are making with promotion, that people simply don't know. There will be people who have no idea that we're engaging on the long-term plan, despite all the work of the comms team in terms of on social media and traditional media, despite all the events and being out and about. There will be a large chunk of the community that simply don't know that it is going on, and we can always improve, but I don't think anyone has solved that issue yet of how to get those messages out. So I think that it is a many-headed beast, I guess.
Stop what, sorry?
A many-headed, I don't know if that's a good
Many-headed.
analogy, but it is a challenge. Shall I put it that way? It's a challenge with not one cause. Yes.
Yeah. And the only comment I'd make, and I'm sure this is the same for all councils, we're frequently talking to people and getting feedback in our community. I mean, it's probably tens of people a day I would get feedback from, would say what's happening here, what's this, that's good, that's not. So I think if you aggregated up all the different sorts of feedback, non-structured and structured, I think probably is higher than what it is, but you're never going to get it fully engaged. And globally, there's a trend around democracy and media, which makes it extremely difficult. So we're probably doing as good, but we always should look to do as well as we can, because it's a very important function with democracy. Evelyn.
Just one thing about the financial performance, and it's just really, how do we handle inter-section invoicing to make sure that it's as timely as everything else, because an entity that I may have something to do with that has in the past been part of council, the invoice for their ground rent was quite significantly delayed. How does that impact on what our financial performance looks? I mean, that's a microcosm, but it made me start to think about how we do the they're not inter-entity. But it could be just the difference between, I don't know.
So really is your question, how confident are the staff in their invoicing process?
And how much delay or that is acceptable, how much happens, is this going to be changed by this new process?
I'm just wondering if we hold this off to the next report, because that talks about debt management and that.
But it is, the finance team can only do as good as we're told to invoice. So it is a centralised model. So if a business, part of the business would like an invoice sent out, they need to tell us. We aren't mind readers. And that is just making sure everybody else's business processes are as efficient as they could be, and that is a work on right through the organisation.
Yeah, so that's probably more my question, is are our own internal processes to one another robust enough, or are there lags, and are those lags fixable?
The lags, if there's any where there's lags, they are fixable.
Thank you.
And some of the investment we're making around the technology will help.
Technology will help over time.
Nobby?
Yeah, just to add to Rhiannon's discussion and Tom's as well, I think the KPIs we have around democracy are not good. Our KPI should say, do we consult, not how do we how does the feedback go? Because I agree with you. We get a very small squeaky door that says we don't listen. What I say to that is we do listen, but sometimes we don't agree, because we sometimes get very small numbers. And the classic example was in the last term when we gave the community an option of either re-strengthening the Pyramid Museum or looking to other options. 90% plus said strengthen the museum, this is the pyramid, and get it open. We took a path, well I didn't, but the other councillors did, took a path that they looked at other options, and we now end up with a new museum. And with hindsight, that was by far the best decision. So, it's sometimes, as Grant said, sometimes very, very difficult to balance out what we hear formally through consultation and what we hear through other mechanisms, which can be quite extensive at times. So I think that we'll never achieve that KPI unless we rewrite it in some way, the democracy ones, around consultation. Have a rethink about how we gauge what we should do, as opposed to, at the moment, like Tom says, every time we pick up the report, we fail in that area. Yet I don't think we fail in democracy at all. I think we do really well.
Okay. Anything else? Trish?
I think perhaps on this business of democracy, we may be able to suggest regularly contacting people to say what we've been doing this week or doing this month. I don't know. I wonder if they don't always know. I know there's a lot of stuff going out, or even something like people have asked us this month or something. We can't do enough in that space, I think. We can't do too much in that space, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Lisa would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think just if you look at the long-term plan, like every resident has received a flyer in their mailbox. We're we've got how many workshops or community engagements? We've got 20 plus.
I think 15, around 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then other ways in which they can go, stands at the library, those sorts of things. So if you look at the long-term plan and the way we're reaching out to our community, I think it's quite significant in its investment.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit of our community.
It's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? Though we may well think that we're doing a good job of it, but 80% of people don't. So, so I think there is a challenge there that we've got to. I mean, to me, there's the days of the kind of town hall type meeting are gone. That nobody comes.
No.
Even engagement in front of stores and so forth, you get a few people, but you don't get that many really. So we feel as though we're working hard to reach out, but the numbers are actually small that we're reaching. And I mean, there must be some electronic way that we can reach people better than we're doing at the moment, you would think. I mean, I'm just suggesting, Cher, that it's an area that we really should not accept that as being acceptable, and we should really be thinking about what else can we do. If the answer is nothing, the answer is nothing. But you kind of feel as though, could you get 1,000 people online? I mean, and have real time type discussions rather than.
Yeah, so
we would do that.
Just
it's so easy to do.
Please be assured we do have 2 Facebook Lives coming up, and the team are doing an awesome job in terms of engaging on social media. They are getting quite a big reach on various posts that they've done, including your video, Deputy Mayor. But we will absolutely, we can never, we need to keep improving and keep looking at options, and we will have a further workshop on it.
Cool.
Excuse me.
Ria.
Sorry, I apologise if I missed this. I noted that the revenue for water says that it was lower than forecasted in November, December due to the process being billed in January. So when you talked about invoicing and improving how those invoices are sent out and matched, will this help fix that?
When we refix the forecast, that would be because we'd probably never send the bills out in December.
Right,
it's when they were coming back. So this is, as I said, we're going to get the processes, and we don't send water bills out every month. We are bi-monthly or quarterly?
Quarterly.
Quarterly. So water bills only go out every quarter to those excess water users.
Okay.
It's just getting that timing.
Getting the timing right, yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Trish.
I just talking about our communication with the public, I'd like to acknowledge the work that the staff have done in this consultation. When we were at the City to Surf consultation, people were absolutely gobsmacked to see all the city councillors there and to be able to discuss it with them. Not councillors, don't mean councillors, sorry, staff, who were visible by their vests and things. It was an excellent consultation. I'm not saying it hasn't been good enough, but perhaps we could do more. But it was a great effort by the team. Great effort.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. We might pick up the Great South piece of it now and get Shami up because she's been waiting patiently.
Are we going back to the resident survey part?
Yeah, we will go back to that. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I want to touch on that. We've touched a little bit on that, but we will definitely go back to that. Thanks, Shami, for staying on.
Very welcome. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
So we'll take this report read. So it's Appendix 5.3 in the agenda. And are there any questions, or do you want to present?
Which one are we talking about? Sorry.
Your performance report.
Performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any, can I take it as read and just take questions, or would you like me to run
Yeah.
through this?
No, we'll take it as read and we'll take questions if there's any. Are we?
Not a question, but more a reflection on the activities, the Central City activation on Don and Esk. I get real good feedback about that.
Thank you.
I know initially you had 4 a year, I think, from memory, way back. So having those every other fortnight or whatever it is at the moment, especially in the warm months, is really good. Good buzz around the city. Even on the miserable day that was last Sunday, there was a good turnout. Yeah, so well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any others? Anything you wanted to particularly call out, Shami, or?
No, just like with the city centre activation, I think as Mayor Nobby outlined, we've done a lot more. We've got 20 committed to for the year. We've into our Q3 at the moment, and definitely areas where we feel that there's opportunity to improve. One of the key things I think that we should probably call out is the New Year's party on Don Street, which was the first time we were able to run it. However, the weather was dismal, only about 800 attendees. But how do we make that better for next year, and whether we actually utilize and create something? I think the feedback had been that it was great to have something in our city for those that did stay back, and there was quite a few people. And given the changing financial climate for everybody involved in the city, I think it might be something that we do want to consider. However, whether we could get it under some sort of shelter, it will be something that we'll have to consider. Buskers, that was another area I feel we've got a lot more to do. It was good. It was good for our first sort of attempt at it, but there's history that we can build on, and learnings from other councils that we can build on as well. And yeah, I think overall, the feedback that we've got has been good. I did get feedback from businesses that were a little external outside of the Don Street area. So how do we activate that? And so as you can see in Q4, we've got a retail spend campaign, and hopefully that will bring those out, the businesses on the outskirts more in. So yeah, that's really.
Yeah. No, thank you. Tom?
Can I ask about the Business Mentors programme, Cham? I noticed that Great South no longer administer that. Has that fallen away completely? I thought that was a lot of value in that. Or is there somebody else providing it now?
Yes, so Business Mentors New Zealand is providing it directly. They took
does?
that. Business Mentors New Zealand.
Oh, they've got that directly?
Yes, they are. The national body is providing that directly. So they took that off us, I think, in 22, and because it was part of the LTP KPIs, we have to report on it, but there's no outcome that we could actually report on.
Yeah. So, Shami, just on that, do you get any see any numbers for how effective they are being in our community?
No. And it is something that actually end of last year we had 2 staff leave the business sort of area, the GM, and another staff member, the GM's position we haven't replaced, and we're still always looking at our business to see how we can optimize delivery and productivity. One of the people that went away was part of the RBP program, but she's come back to us now, and that's one of the tasks that we have for her. So she started in January, looking at those external trainings that are going on. What is the value for that? Is there a gap? How are we going to bridge that gap? But it's not only in isolation of Great South alone. It will be events and opportunities put on through the Chamber or through COIN or through Invest South or any of the other various areas.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Red.
Can I just make a comment for the business mentoring? At the moment, down here for Invercargill and Southland, we have more demand of businesses to seek mentoring than what we can fill for mentors themselves. So it's not that the success rate is lower, it's the fact that more businesses coming out of COVID are leaning more heavily on that mentorship. but we just can't seem to find enough people that can actually fulfil those mentor roles.
Where do you get that information from?
Because I'm one of them.
You're one of the mentors, right? Okay. Well, that's good feedback. Yeah.
That's obviously an opportunity then that we could look at and
Yeah.
should be looked at quite significantly. Can I connect with you?
Yes,
Rita?
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for pointing that out, Rick. Okay, well, look, no further questions, so thanks, Shami, for staying on. And
No, I've got something for Jamie. I think he got away way too easy. Like another 4 or 5 questions for him.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
appreciated.
Appreciate the time, Council.
No, thank you. Okay, we'll come back to, I do want to sort of, and we did touch a little bit, and I think that was to your point, Tom, around the resident survey, but I know a couple of others have got some questions around that, so come back to that, which is 5.2, and then we may give the Mayor an opportunity to come back to the financial report. Evelyn, you had a question on the residents report.
Yeah, the disconnect between the comments about Hiwakatoa KPIs and then the resident survey and what is said. I know that we cannot quality control, for lack of a better word, what residents say in the survey, but there's a real disconnect because I thought people were only supposed to comment on services that they had used, but it seems like a lot of the comments, and particularly the negative stuff, seems to come out of people who don't actually go there and use the service. And it was really quite outstanding to me when I read the comments on Hiwakatoa, because I don't go there, whatever. How can you comment on what is being provided, and how do we? Is it acceptable that we accept a survey result that says that you ask people to comment on services you've used, and then put pages and pages of comments of people who didn't use the service? And I'm just thinking that we're seeing and we're regurgitating material that makes it look as if a service is not performing, when the people who actually use the service and comment on it seem happy with the service. There's a real tension there. And how do we deal with that?
How are you drawing that conclusion? You're looking at the number of respondents versus the feedback comment.
And what they say. They're saying, oh, I don't go there.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, I've never been there, or I walk past it, it's too small, or, whatever it is that they say. But it's not just Hiwakatoa, but there are a number of the things. I mean, somebody yesterday stopped me at the bus stop, at the bus hub, and said that I won't say what they said about me catching the bus, but the fact that they don't feel that they talk to the people who use the buses enough. So again, we've got a lot of comments on the bus service, but they're not from people who are using the bus service. Where do we filter some of what we respond? And I know we probably need to know why people don't use the service, but that's not the question we're asking, is it?
So through you, Chair, the KPI is on those that use the service. So the responses, the percentage responses, that's what that's based on, and they are filtered based on whether the respondent says they've used the service. Now, obviously, there is no way in a survey to filter if people are either mistaken about how frequently they've used the service, or are simply for whatever reason not operating in good faith. So we wouldn't know if that was occurring. The comments are all the comments. We could certainly talk with the research providers about whether we change the way that is presented. It's designed, I guess, in the way that it's presented at the moment to provide a flavour to yourself as councillors of all the things that have been said when people choose to make further statements, which they don't necessarily need to do when they complete the survey. Looking ahead and planning for next year, one of the things that we will be trialling and doing differently is more use of in-point survey responses. So we're working with the managers, and we will have on a rotating basis the opportunity for people while they're actually at the service to respond to the residents survey, either just on that portion that relates to the service or the whole survey. And that's designed to pick up those people while they are there at the service. There are limitations of any survey approach. We've spoken about this around this table before, that when you do a online survey, you do pick up a more negative tone of response. That is the nature of an online survey. It's something to do with the psychology of people with a screen. But unfortunately, it's no longer sustainable to do the old phone surveys because people simply do not have the same landline availability. So it's again a technology change issue. So I think probably that's all I can say about your about that question. I hope that's of some use.
No, it's absolutely fine. I mean, some of that I surprisingly enough did work out for myself, but I think it needs to be actually, the public needs to know perhaps that we ask these questions, we get the answers, we see all the answers. We saw lots, lines and lines and lines of people saying whatever they said, some of which was quite negative, but at the same time, there's not necessarily a match between how the people who actually use the services feel compared to what the public perception of the service actually is.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the nature. It's a little bit to point around, some people just choose to have an opinion on everything.
Which is also to the point of the long-term plan. We consult, we can't, you put the flyer in everybody's mailbox and yet still people say we don't know you can do anything to do with the long-term plan. So it's about what people read, what they absorb, what is important to them.
Yeah. The one point I marked on there on page 68 was just around the comment about the public forums are daunting. And it made me think about, what, because that would be for some coming here and talking to us, would be. And so how do we give people their voice, in a more, will we have them run them in the Otatara Hall or the Windsor Hall or the South City Hall or and have them present in less formal areas? Just a thought. I'm not expecting an answer, but I did get some really good engagement through the long-term plan at the chamber meeting, where some 3 staff from a community group that work with rangatahi felt that their constituents didn't have a voice around public transport, and so I connected them in with what would Doug's picking up and doing around his view of it, and so he's going to now catch up with them. So I think we've just got to continue to think through the ways we can plug people into the right people to have the voice heard, and that's a great example of it in my view. So is it this or is it?
No, it's just generally. Yeah, when I went to the multicultural festival during the weekend, and it was a really good insight into how people felt about things. It gave me a chance to talk to them, and they talked to me back, filled out all the forms. So it's going to be really good what they put on there.
Yeah.
In relation to this issue, I guess 2 things. On page 20 of board books, we've got a statement in the 3rd paragraph that says He Wakatui is performing well, and then you go down two paragraphs further down and it says its satisfaction remains below target. And I guess that's the issue that Evelyn's raising. The top level, where we are getting good satisfaction level, quotes 82% and 83%, but the bottom ones don't tell us anything, and so that's confusing. And to Rhiannon's point, I went to a museum in one of the museums in Australia about 12 months ago, and they use Q codes. So what they do is that when you enter something, you can't look at something on the wall and get a description. You've got to use your cell phone. So you click on the Q code and you just listen to it. And before you can click on the next one, you've got a satisfaction rating that you have to fill out 1 through 5. 5 being that you thought what you've seen was great, and at the other end it was a waste of space. And so you get instant feedback from the people that are actually in the facility. as opposed to those that sit outside that may not agree with the facility and will have a comment about it. And the buses are a classic example of that. If you ask me about buses, I'd say, why do we subsidise buses for such a few small level of people? So that could be a negative comment, but I don't actually use buses, so I'm not in a position to comment about the service provided. So it is a tricky one.
Yeah, so just speaking to that point around the performance for Awakatui, obviously the satisfaction is only one part of that.
Sure.
Their visitation numbers are good.
Yep.
And that just shows the complex nature of the issue. It may be that they're getting, you know, repeat visitors going to all of their exhibitions, or one exhibition reaches a really, you know, good group. And I know the team down there are doing that kind of analysis at the management level. KPIs by their very nature, they're only going to give you an indicator. That's what they are. They're indicators. We'll always look each long-term plan at improving them. And certainly we have used QR codes. The buses are a great example. We've done on-bus promotion when we had those specific questions a few quarters ago for the buses. And that is what the new process will do next year. Will be designed to do more on-site surveying.
And the comments regarding Splash Palace are twofold. And the one, you know, numbers are up, but the satisfaction's down. That's how I interpret those two comments in that page 20. Same as Awakatui.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So one's relating to usage and one's relating to feedback, isn't it? Okay. Righto. I think we've just about had
I haven't had my 5 questions yet.
You've just had 2.
No, they weren't part of the 5. So let me ramble.
I'll give you 1.
No,
Make it a good one.
we've got to have a few more than that. On page 25, Jamie, in the report, it's got a schedule of projects going forward. And I wonder why the 1225 project, which has a completion date for the build in December 2025, has an opening date 13 months later. It was my understanding, and happy for the chair to correct me otherwise, that the fit out was about a 6-month job, which now seems to have been kicked out to about 13 months.
So you're looking at the...
It's on page 25 of board books.
The green.
Looking at the roadmap.
Roadmap.
I can't read that.
Yep.
So you're saying January 27.
Yep, that's what it's got
The
there.
yellow bar.
Yep, the yellow bar goes out to January 27. I'd hate to think that we spend...
Well, that's actually construction, so that's not quite right, is it? Erin.
I'm happy to go back and review the program, but my understanding is the program for the opening date's been set since the program was put in place when we reset the timeline, and that hasn't changed.
No,
but I'll just check if we've had an error there.
My recollection was...
It was definitely always more than a 6-month fit-out time.
That's not my recollection, but never mind. I won't be here then. There's reference on page 252 about buskers, and I've had an inquiry from somebody that's quite active. So if you've been down in S Street recently, there's a couple of women that do fiddling, and they're quite regular there. They said that they have to get a weekly license from council to be able to do busking in S Street. I just wanted to clarify, is there some option that can be a longer period?
Yeah, sorry, they've been misinformed. That's not the case. We've dealt with a similar example and resolved that.
That's all good. We've also got on page 263 a reference to waste net revenue, which it refers to that coming in more at the end of the year. They'll have a clearer picture on that. My question is...
Hang on. That's in the next paper.
Oh, is it? Sorry. No, all right.
So you lose a question for that.
I lose a question for that. So, okay, the last one then is around the description in relation to salaries. We don't have much of an explanation.
That's the next paper too, I think.
Is it? Okay.
Financial update. Yeah. Righty-ho. So we've got 5 motions. Yeah, Why is it not so showing there? Thank you.
Financial update.
Yeah. Can you make it smaller, please? 6 motions. One recommendation to council, which is to approve the forecast outline and the schedule of changes for Q2, and the other recommendations are just for noting. Can I have someone move and second those notes and that recommendation to council? Thank you, Nobby. Second it. Barry? Okay, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so tab 6, which is the financial update. You're going to present? No, he's going to do it.
Oh, and Stephanie's in.
We'll take the report as read. Just want to highlight a couple of things again within the report. So again, just mentioning the accounting treatment previously, so that has reflected in the actuals in January as well. In this report we quote the annual plan. This year, because we didn't have the phasing differences, we've just divided it evenly by 12 and used that as our year to date. Going forward next year, we will actually have a phasing built in to that. So we will be able to see like the seasonally trends rather than trying to explain why we just divided budget by 12. The other thing to note is, although in this report is to the end of January, the deficit is lower than it was in December. However, we've also got a number of large subsidy revenues which have not been received as of yet. Namely, we've got 2 that were outstanding from Wakakatoi at the end of January, but they've since been received. I'll pass to Stephanie to talk about the debt side, unless you want to talk about that first.
Yeah, so just to confirm that, so that's in the subsidy, so we're under 5 million. So we were forecasting we'd receive them in January, and they didn't come till February.
Yes, yeah, right. The claims were lodged in January, and we haven't received the funds at that stage.
Yeah, thank you. Were there any other questions on that particular part of the report?
You taking questions on the whole finance report?
Oh,
what do you want to do?
Let Jamie finish the other piece.
Right, we'll just pass to Stephanie to look at the debt management space.
So I'd like to table the debt management report as read. If anyone's got any questions.
Yeah, so when you talk debt management, you're talking about arrears and rates and that sort of thing. Yeah. Not our balance sheet debt.
No.
So it's our creditor position, really. Yeah. Okay, we'll take questions now. Tom?
On page 4 of 8 of the report, other expenses. I almost hesitate to ask this question because it sounds a bit self-seeking actually, but given the honoraria party is very, very precise, we know exactly how much is allocated and so forth, and it's divided up to the nearest cent, basically. How does that end up being under budget?
It comes down to when the wage data comes through to the finance. So because we're under, there's probably some data that hasn't come through to us just as yet, as even January.
You mean the method of budget's different? The way of setting the budget's different from the way that we account for payments.
The budgets,
Jamie,
I'll get Michael
Councillor Scout resigned partway through, and we had a period of time where we had no replacement until Councillor Board was elected, so the honoraria paid will be down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So hopefully that's slightly easier than Jamie's calculated answer.
Yeah.
But you still think there's some timing differences in there?
Yeah, there is some timing differences.
But they're not 39 grand, but it's related to the vacancy we had around the council table. Yep. Okay, other questions? Nobby?
Yep, just on that's one of my questions as well. So if at the half year stage we've spent on honoraria 468,000, you'd expect close to a double up when you get to the year end, which is clearly not what we've budgeted for. We've only budgeted for 869.
So this is to the end of January, so this is 7 months.
7 months.
12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just to note on that also, the annual plan, when that was locked down, we may not have had the final figures of what the honorariums will be for the final year.
Yep.
So that'll be reflected in the forecast space. But we can't change the annual plan to reflect that once we've adopted the annual plan.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess the same principle applies from the employee expenses, which are back on 263, which is a 7 month figure at 19 million. So if you equate that back to a 6-year figure and double it up, it will come fairly close to the 32 at the end. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And the other issue for me is the issue of waste net revenue. And it may be one that you can't answer, and maybe Aaron or somebody needs to answer, but it's you talked there about waste net revenue, but what's Gore's share of the revenue that we've currently got coming in? Are they currently got a percentage share of that, given that they don't recycle?
I can't answer that off the top of my head at the moment.
Yeah,
I'll
don't
take
know
that
either.
away and
Yeah, we can come back.
when Aaron's
Yeah,
have a chat with her. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's me done. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, so just if I could get a mover in a second to receive the financial update for February and note the current state of the council finances. Nobby is going to move. Seconder. Did you have your hand up there, Alan? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, so that brings us to the public excluded part of the agenda. So the reasons for us going into public excluded are around section 7.2 largely, aren't they? Yeah. Which is around protection of information.
I'll move those.
Thank you, Nobby. Seconded, Barry. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Righto.